Welcome to the Yappy Hour, powered by Yappily, the podcast for dog lovers who want to better understand and connect with their four-legged friends. I'm your host, Nathan Dunleavy, and today we're diving into one of the most important and often overlooked aspects of dog care, enrichment. My guest is Mr. Shay Kelly, a leading expert in canine enrichment, behaviour and training. Shay is the author of several books on dog behaviour and is passionate about helping pet parents create happier and fulfilled lives for their dogs through simple, practical enrichment techniques. In this episode, we explore why enrichment is essential, how it can prevent and solve behavioural issues, and easy ways to introduce more enrichment into your dog's daily routine without spending a fortune. Whether you have a high-energy pup, a senior dog, or a nervous rescue, this episode is full of inspiration and actionable advice. So grab a cup of tea, settle in, and let's get started. Welcome back to the Yappy Hour, powered by Yappily. I'm your host, Nathan Dunleavy, and I'm so excited to bring you another episode today. Even more excited that we have the legend that is Mr. Shay Kelly joining us on the episode. Welcome, Shay. So we're going to be talking all about enrichment and why it's so important for your dog, and it's going to be a great jam-packed episode. So Shay, welcome to the Yappy Hour. As I said, I'm so excited to have you with us today. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. Thanks for having me on here. Always nice to talk about anything dog related, really.
Absolutely. No, you're most welcome. So Shay, for those that might not be familiar with your work, could you share a little bit about your background and how you became so passionate about enrichment?
Oh, well, it's a long story, which I'll try and make a bit shorter.
That's okay. You go for it.
Going right back to childhood, I would say that I didn't really gel with people so much as I gelled with animals, and so it was always that natural progression from there, really. And then, as an adult, nothing changed. I still felt more connection to an animal, where there's no social pressures and all that sort of thing that you get with human social activities, and I'm not into socializing and all that. I'm chatty online, but I'm not really in the real world. I sort of keep myself to myself.
Oh, well, I feel privileged that you've come onto the Yappy Hour with me then.
Yeah. So into adulthood, I sort of got into obedience and sort of liked training activities like that. And then I got into trick training as time went by. I worked in rescue kennels and I ran training classes, and then I went to university and did 3 degrees because I got a bit addicted to it, on 2 in dog training and 1 on animal behaviour. I did a little bit for dog aid, assistance dogs, and I do the occasional guest lecture, sometimes for the uni that I went to, and I've done a few other talks for people. I've done one for Grisha Stewart, and then I've written my books as well, which was a sort of a long-term dream, really, but I'd never expected it to happen.
Oh, wow. Well, we're going to be chatting about your books as well. I've got one here with me, so we are going to be coming on to your books, so that's fantastic. 3 degrees. I don't know how you managed that, but fair play to you.
Well, when you consider I left school without a single qualification, it was quite a surprise for me as well. But when you get hooked on something that you're really passionate for, it wasn't. It was difficult, but it wasn't. It was something I wanted to do. I was sort of addicted to it. I spent every day thinking about it. It overtook my life, really. I sort of really lived it. I was always working on an assignment of some kind at some time. So I did the first 2 degrees, and then I wasn't going to do the masters. Okay. And but after about 2 months of doing nothing, I was like, I had the bug again, so I had to go back the following year.
Wow, what an inspiration. I love that. Fair play to you. Like you say, you got addicted to it. You're clearly passionate about it. So that's absolutely brilliant. So you've written several books. We touched on your books just now, all about dog behaviour and enrichment. What inspired you to focus on these topics?
I think really the enrichment came along almost accidentally. I wasn't massively more into enrichment than anything else, but I was more into dog tricks, and I did a Facebook group where people won different awards, Dog Trick Geeks it was called, many years ago.
Oh.
But it became about, it was nice, but part of it, people become obsessed in just what they're trying to achieve and not the journey to get there. And I just wanted something that wasn't about being the best and just enjoying your dog, whatever level they were on or whatever level you were on. I didn't want it. Everything in the dog world seemed to be a competition, and that's what I was a little bit uncomfortable with, I would say. Even though I enjoyed that stuff, I was a little bit uncomfortable with it. It wasn't about the relationship so much as it was about, I want to be the best at something. And so I started looking around at enrichment then, and there was a lot around about, there was things called like do more with your dog and things like that, but at that time, there was no umbrella term of canine enrichment. It just didn't seem to exist. And so I started the first enrichment group because I couldn't find anything online at all when I was looking.
Okay.
And I think I got the idea, and it's a long time ago now, but I think I got the idea from the zoo groups, because there was some for zookeepers for enrichment. And it just puzzled me that there wasn't one for dogs when we were all keeping them in our homes. And so I started my own, and that really is one of, it wasn't because I was brilliant, because it was just the right thing at the right time, and it really took off. I had thousands and thousands of members in no time, and then other groups appear with similar names, and it just grew from there. And now it's everywhere. You don't see a behaviour conference without it mentioned, or a workshop, so I like to think I had a little part to play in that, and it makes me smile.
Definitely, fair play, definitely. One of your books is all about enrichment as well, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. Canine Enrichment, and again, that was the first book to be written.
That was the first one.
It seems strange now, but it's the first book to be written solely for dog enrichment. It really does seem odd, and now there's loads and loads, which is.
But you can always, you'll always be you're always the first though, so that's a good accolade.
Yeah, it's nice to have.
That's brilliant. I've got one of your books as well. I've got Puppy Nurture, but I think this one's been released again, isn't it, Shay? Or have I got that wrong?
No, you got that wrong. Canine Enrichment is the only one with a second edition.
There we go. Right. Yeah. Okay. So is that done now? I did see something that you were doing it. Yeah.
That one's done, and I'm working on a book which is taking much longer than the others, which is just about recall. Because of the problems people have with recall. But it's the first time I've written a whole book on just one behaviour, if you know what I mean. So it's quite challenging, really, because you don't want to fill it with waffle to make it a book. It has to be meaningful. But if you look at my training book, the recall exercise takes up, 2 or 3 pages by memory. Right. So you're trying to write a whole book on that one subject. So it has a lot of... it's in a holistic approach, really. It has a lot of things that will benefit the relationship and benefit the recall and stuff like that, and building up slowly. And I'm only about halfway through, so it's very slow going.
I'm told that they do sometimes take a while. It's a bit of labour of love writing a book.
Absolutely, you have to see it that way, really. For me, it's sort of like a therapy. It's just some way of
that's nice
being able to write things down, and it's not all the hustle and bustle of Facebook or social media. It's just your little space to write whatever you want, and you don't get much argument about it.
No,
the people who are reading it are sat at home, not on Facebook, criticising every little word.
Yeah, not behind a keyboard. So it's almost a bit of an escapism, I gather.
Yeah, there's no money in it, really. It's not a business. It has to be a passion, because there's just so many books out there now. Everybody has, you don't even need a publisher. You can self-publish. It's very easy. So everyone's writing them. Some are not very good to start with. And then now you've got the AI stuff coming in, which Amazon are willing to sell just about anything, whatever wrote it, even a computer. They're not very good. The technology's not there yet to make the books very good. But if they pay for the advertising, which they do, they get their book up there in all the searches, and that's what people are buying, unfortunately. Okay. So it's a very difficult marketplace. So you have to just do it for yourself and enjoy your work being out there for people if they choose to read it.
Exactly. So your book that you're in the middle of then, is it just going to be ready when it's ready? You just take your time with it?
People keep asking me, and I move the goalpost each time.
That's fine.
I was hoping this summer, but it's there's still quite a lot to do, and I'm getting a puppy in 4 weeks' time. So
I've seen you're getting a puppy. Yeah. So puppy nurture. Then you've got what you do with your new puppy.
Yeah, I'll reread the book.
You'll reread the book. So what number was this? Was this number 2 or number 3?
That was number 3, but Canine Enrichment had a second edition, so it depends how you class them.
Do it.
I have kept the original on sale. I took it off sale for a while, but then I put it back on very cheap because people seem to want it. So
fair enough. Yeah. Yeah, well, I'll definitely have a look out for that one. I don't know what made me bought that. I think I saw it in one of your groups I was in, and I went and got it. But I do know you had some others, so I will be looking out for those. And yes, your new...
That Puppy Nurture is the one I'm most proud of, really. It's not the one I thought I'd ever read, but I was really, really pleased with that book, more so than any of the other books that I've written.
Okay.
There are so many puppy books out there. Just everyone seems to write a puppy book. And I suppose that's when people are buying and looking around is when they get a puppy. They're looking for what to get and what they need and all that. But they're not very good. I just had to write one that didn't have something in it that didn't make me cringe, because I've not found one yet. So
that's fair enough.
I was pleased to have that one. Even some of the really, I'm not going to mention them for obvious reasons, but some of the really famous ones that the highest sellers in the country have got pages in there where you just shake your head.
Oh, gosh.
Teaching people about separation anxiety by locking a dog in a room. And it's just like, oh, God. What? These are supposed to be the good ones.
Yeah, that's nuts. So. All right. Well, I'm glad you've brought out a good one. We definitely recommending that more. So you mentioned your new puppy. So 4 weeks to Moose arriving. Yeah. You're on countdown.
Yeah, getting updates or pup dates virtually every day from the breeder. So
yeah,
very nice.
So what mind? If you don't mind me asking, what made you go for a new puppy? Just felt you were missing having a puppy around, or
as we're talking about enrichment, probably the biggest reason is that I like to have more than one dog, and I lost my dogs a few years ago, both in the same year, both from cancer, but different cancers. It was just Mr. B, my Labrador, died young. He was only 9 years old. That was awful.
He's in this book. He's in this book, isn't he, Mr. B? I saw that, Barney.
That's the one I dedicated to him. And we had Daisy as well, who was a bit older. She was 14, but she had cancer as well the same year, later that year, about 6 months later. So then I got my current dog, Monty, and I've just been waiting really for the right time to bring in another one. And I just think the greatest form of enrichment, if you can do it, it's not for everyone, I'm not saying that at all. If you can do it, is for them to have another canine companion, I think.
Yeah. And how old's Monty now?
He's 2.5.
Oh, so still a good age then to have a little playmate.
Yeah. He will probably revert to puppyhood a little bit. Not that he's ever completely got out of it. So it'll be fun, let's say.
I can't wait for all the updates. I've already seen some cute little pictures of Moose, but I can't wait until you bring him home.
Oh, he's gorgeous.
Yeah, he does. Is he the only one that's that colour out of the litter as well?
There's 2 out of 8 of them.
Wow.
But the other one's a girl. So
okay.
I definitely know which one's mine. So I'm sorted.
Brilliant. Well, I can't wait for Moose and all the Moose related posts to come out from you. So I look forward to that. So we're going to be moving on to our next section, which is all about what is enrichment and why does it matter. People often think of enrichment as just giving their dog a puzzle toy, but it's so much more than that. Shay, how do you define enrichment, please?
Yeah, and surprisingly, I'm not really into the puzzle toys. Everyone expects that I will be, but I don't find dogs are that good at solving complex puzzles. I just
Why
so
make
for
it
me,
hard?
well, exactly. That's the other thing where people go wrong, I think, with enrichment. They think it's about making it hard rather than engaging. So I think that's one of the big mistakes that you see. But for me, and I was only thinking about this again recently with you to coming back on here, because I think everyone who asks me that question probably gets a slightly different answer, because you change as it evolves and, you think about it more and all the rest of it. So now I like to say that enrichment is giving back. And
Love that.
So the reason it came in zoos and was needed back in, I don't know, that the early 80s, it started to really get big in zoos, is because it became obvious that the animals weren't faring very well in such confinement, because basically they're not able to do the behaviours they would be doing. They're not able to even do replacement behaviours because the confinement is so small compared to living a wild life. So it's really about giving back some of the opportunities that are lost due to captivity. And people don't often think of dogs as being in captivity or being captive animals, but really they are. They're confined to our little lives in our little houses.
They are.
And so we have to give opportunity for behaviour, that's going to benefit them. So that's what I think enrichment is about now, is just giving those opportunities back.
Yeah,
and,
I absolutely love that.
The thing is that the animal was born to interact with their environment. That's why they got such an advanced brain, and all mammals have got an advanced brain, and to make choices and to seek food and to explore and to even to avoid danger. But in our lives, all those things are pretty much taken away from them. They, even avoiding danger, which seems, when you say it like that, seems daft, doesn't it? But they don't even have that choice. We've got them on a leash. They've got no choice where they live.
That's it.
So it's trying to give some of those things back, really, and stimulate their mind and help with their development, and just give them an active mind. You just got to look at the problems with children. It's known about a bit more now, but from years back to when I was young, really, if they didn't get the opportunities that people get now, really, with interaction and development and going to nursery schools. I've got a little granddaughter in nursery school now, and the things they do, it's a joy. They send photos home of all their activities, but you just think of that in a development term, how many children they're interacting with and how many things they're going to see, and rather than maybe being stuck at home until the age of 4, if there wasn't much stimulation in that home. And so, it's not as serious with a dog, obviously, but it's the same sort of principle. And, the mind needs stimulation if it's going to develop well.
It does. Brilliant. I love that. And what I kind of get from that is giving back, but it's almost giving back their freedom, isn't it, to a degree?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things I've sort of got interested in a bit more recently is the idea of agency. And when you look at that, it's more than just being about choice. It's agency is there for animals to develop, to build confidence, to explore and feel, that they build confidence by being able to make choices, because they can investigate something, they can have a little look, or they can back off, run away the other way when they're free. When in captivity, you haven't got those choices. So they don't feel as secure, most likely. So we've got a job to do in looking after them, I think, more than people think we have.
Yeah, definitely. We are seeing that word agency branded around a lot more now, aren't we?
Yeah, I think the thing for me, anyway, I wrote a piece last year for Operance, the Skinner magazine, about choice and stuff like that. And that's what really got me thinking about it. And really, when you look at it, it's a big chunk of it is about their ability to develop them for themselves. It's not just choice.
Yeah, brilliant. What happens, Shay, when a dog isn't getting enough enrichment in their daily lives?
So it's an interesting topic, I think, that because we think of behaviour problems all the time because they're the things that are causing us humans a problem. But I often think of the ones that go the other way, and there must be loads of dogs like this that just shut down, and you know, they just get used to doing nothing all day. So it's not always going to be obvious in behaviour problems. Okay. Sometimes your dog will just be, I would use the word depressed, and you know, people might not like that word for an animal, but
no, I know
that's how I would describe it. If they've got no joy in life and you know nothing seems to matter to them, I would describe that as depression. So you've got, especially when they're young, you've got a lack of brain development. It's not just the ethics of it. It's, you know, if you've got a dog that's not developing properly or not stimulated properly, you're going to get other issues. You can't expect to have everything you want from the dog if their brain isn't even developing properly. You've got the behaviour problems where dogs will try and he's making an appearance.
Yeah, he's making me sneeze, I think.
Dogs will often try and fulfill their own lives by getting into mischief and getting into bins and, you know, chewing up the furniture. And so you've got all that side of it, and then you've got the boredom and going back to agency, I think a lack of confidence because there was not enough stimulation, not enough development, not enough letting the dog investigate different things, and overall you end up with poor mental well-being. But it can be hard to, you know, put an exact figure on that because people who even sees it, you know,
that made me feel a bit sad. Like if a dog's feeling depressed, it's quite a sorry state of affairs, isn't it? If they're not getting that enrichment, that
absolutely. But looking back, I've seen lots of dogs in that state. I've seen lots of dogs, when I think about it now, that don't have that spark in their relationship with their guardian at all because they've never learned that their behaviour influences anything. They've just, you know, it's all exciting when they're a pup, sure, but when the novelty wears off, and it often does, they become a bit of a burden to the guardian, and they're just sort of forgotten about. And we need to find ways of, it's not just about the dog. I always think people will always say, oh, it's the dog's walk, it's the dog's this, but the guardian needs to find joy in it too. So you need to find ways of enjoying your dog, as you're not going to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess that's where like the different sports like come in, like, you know, Hoopers, agility, scent work, doing stuff with your dog to build on that bond and relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I started the enrichment, actually going back to the beginning, when I started the group, I was thinking more along the lines of dogs that are stuck at home, not dogs that are out doing all these dog sports and all of it. They don't need it so much, or they're less likely to need it because they've got a full active life with somebody who takes them out and about and does stuff. But I always remember reading a survey very long time ago, I'm talking about over 30 years ago, that the RSPCA did, of how many dogs actually got walked every day. And it was, I can't remember the figures, but it was staggeringly low of dogs that never even left the house or on a regular walk. And that's not to say that all dogs need a walk, because some dogs it's not the right thing for them. It's too much for them, or they've got fears. But generally, dogs should be going out and about and being part of your life, in my view, not locked up at home.
Yeah, agreed.
And so that's what I was more thinking of when I started Enrichment. It was for these dogs that are often stuck at home.
Yeah, brilliant. Are you able to break down the different types of enrichment and why they're all important?
So for me, I made my own when I was studying enrichment and stuff like that at uni. there's lots of different ways that have been used to categorize the different elements of enrichment.
Yeah.
And none of them really, I wasn't totally comfortable with any of them. They didn't make complete sense to me. I don't think audio is ever going to be a big thing in canine enrichment, although some people play the music and that, but it's not quite the same as olfaction, you know. So it doesn't even compare, does it? So
you came up your own, you rebel. I love that.
I did, and that's sort of formed what I did with the enrichment book. Really, that's the way I broke it down into different segments. So and this one, they all overlap a little bit, the different categories, but they do that however you look at it, however you look at enrichment, whatever the category sort of thing is. But one you never see anywhere, which I have in mine, and the first thing to consider is actually safety. And you know, you think, how is safety enrichment? But if the dog doesn't feel safe, they're never going to have an enriched life. Safety comes before everything else. You know, mammals need to find a place of safety, else that's their biggest concern. Nothing else matters so much as safety. So you've always got to look at it. You know, you want to be their place of safety, really, which is why I'm so opposed to aversive training and those sort of practices. But the way I explain it in when I do talks on it is that if you can imagine sitting on a beach, if that's what you like, it's not going to work if you don't like that. Reading your favourite book and drinking your favourite drink, and it's all lovely, peaceful, beautiful beach with a beautiful clear sea, and then you take those exact same things, that nice deck chair and that nice book and that nice drink, and you put them in the middle of the M25 on the Central Reservation.
Bloody hell.
You're suddenly not going to find any of that enriching, are you? It's not possible because you're bothered about your safety, rightly so. So enrichment isn't, these things aren't enriching if you don't feel safe.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
It'd be like giving your dog a Kong in the garden with fireworks going off next to them. It's so safety is a big thing for me in enrichment. And then I go to food foraging, which is a different category, and that's a massive category. And I must say, when I started enrichment, that's how I thought of it really, as food, because it's so easy.
Yeah. Because
dogs have to eat. We all have to eat. And in if there wasn't in captivity, or look at any other animal, how much time they spend, how much resources they put into getting enough calories, finding that food, hunting, whatever it is, even if it's grazing, they're spending a lot of time doing that activity and putting a lot of effort into it because it's what's going to keep them alive. And then for years and years and years and years, we've just put their food down in front of them in a bowl. And the two, I'm not saying you have to just do one or the other, but the contrast between the two of those things is just so vast. I often feed my dog in a bowl these days. I didn't for years. But if you're struggling for things to find to fulfill your dog in an enriching way, that is the obvious go-to. And it's not about making their food difficult to access at all. It's about engagement and making it interesting. It's about giving them the opportunity to be successful, not making it difficult. Too many people do that, and they'll. I wrap food up in a towel. I think I started that craze off years ago. I wrap food up in a towel. It's surprisingly not as easy as you would think for a dog. To us, you just think, it's just unroll it. And you could teach your dog to just unroll it properly and it'd be easy. But if you don't do that, they're all over the place with it and it all gets... So it's not that easy. But then I see people only recently on TikTok saying, oh no, they've been doing it all wrong doing that. That's not difficult enough. You've got to put it in there and then you've got to tie the towel in a knot. It's like, give the dog a chance. It's just supposed to be fun and engaging.
Yeah.
So so
You don't want it to be you don't want it to be frustrating, do you? Like you said, it'll be fun.
Absolutely. So I always try and stress the point that it's supposed to be engaging, not difficult. And then I move on. I got another category which I call non-food activities, and really that came in because too many people concentrated on the food, and you don't want your relationship with your dog to be all about food, because life isn't all about food. And you can make the dog obsessive over food. Not like you need much help when you're a Labrador person like I am. But so you've got non-food activity, and that can just be like playing with toys like flirt poles and stuff like that, which don't have to involve food at all. The dog is just enjoying it for enjoyment's self because it finds it fun. Yeah. And then natural behaviours, I think, is a real big one. That's another category. So there's 5 altogether categories.
No problem.
Natural behaviours, and these are just ways of thinking about it. They're not all totally separate, but it makes you think about what your dog might need. And the most obvious for dogs is scenting, being able to sniff, doing olfactory games and stuff like that. They're just, couldn't recommend it enough. If you only did one thing with your dog, it would be to engage, let them engage in olfaction of some sort, do something, because that's sort of what they were born to do. And it's been found in scientific studies that it increases optimism, which is a great way of showing that it's increasing their mental well-being, because optimism is strongly linked to well-being.
Yeah.
So it's a no-brainer, really. And then the last one is companionship and bonding, which brings us on to getting another dog. And it doesn't always have to be with another dog, because dogs bond with humans extremely well. So dogs can live quite happily on their own, but they need that figure in their lives, even if it's a human, to really bond with them, and you to be their attachment figure. And just like in children who have an attachment figure, usually their mother, it can be their father as well, it doesn't just have to be one, but it's usually, especially when they're small, your mother is your strongest attachment figure. The thing I always think with dogs, the interesting thing is that I think we've bred them over the years and developed them to stay quite infantile. Many dogs don't really grow up. I might be bringing in my influence with Labradors again here, but they, just like humans, they play into adulthood. A lot of animals don't, because they're more interested in having to get enough food and stuff like that. But we've done that. We've bred infantile features on the face, and that all has a knock-on effect. So, and they don't grow up to be independent. They grow up, they're with us their whole lives. And so I think they do have quite a lot of childishness about them, if you like. A lot of dogs do, at least. And so probably that attachment figure and that bonding is even more important, because it could be like it's a parent-child type relationship.
Yeah.
That's how I sort of look at it, and that's why I think that the companionship is so important, to have that strong bond, for them to have that place of safety and trust, and to be able to enjoy life.
Yeah. Okay, can I just summarise those and repeat them back to you? So Shay's different types of enrichment, there were 5. We had safety at number 1, then food foraging. Was that right? I don't know if I caught the end of food foraging.
Yeah, but they don't necessarily have to be in that order. That's
that's just your 5. And then we got non-food activities, natural behaviours, and companionship and bonding.
Yeah.
Lovely. Right, so our next section is all about enrichment for different dogs and tailoring activities to suit their individual needs. How does a dog's breed, history and personality influence the type of enrichment that they may need, Shay?
I don't tend to look at breed as much as you might think, or as much as other people do. I'm not saying there's nothing in that, because there is. My Labradors have loved water.
Food and water.
But my first Labrador certainly never swam, because he never went in water deeper than he could paddle, but he loved to splash about in water, but he wasn't confident enough to take the plunge. And you absolutely have to look at the individual, because there's more, I think, more difference between individuals of the same breed than there is between breeds. So I always think that's... I think it's good to consider what your dog was bred to do, like border collies, and you just watch them. There's 5 or 6 that walk where I walk every morning, go around in a group together, and you just watch their behaviour, and it is different to most dogs' behaviour, the way they stalk and run around and circle back round, and so there's a lot in genetics, but it's still massively important to look at your individual dog and learn what their preferences are. And I did some research when I was at university on it was on olfaction and the difference between breeds, and what you expect to see is stronger olfactory ability in the breeds that have been bred as for scent detection, which was generally the case. But one of the dogs that scored in the test I was doing as high as any other dog in the whole thing, including Cocker Spaniels and dogs like that, was a greyhound. Was able to detect and indicate on the scent that a Cocker Spaniel had, at the same level. So things like that are quite surprised me. I was already ready to write up that they were useless at it, and I was expecting them not to be that interested back in those days. So it's very, very surprising that a dog which was bred to be a sight hound and to chase what it could see could pick up the detection. The olfactory ability of dogs, whatever the breed, is absolutely phenomenal. Even with the brachycephalics, and you've got deformities inside and all the rest of it, which I've written up about, they're still absolutely phenomenal, and it still means a hell of a lot to them. So you've absolutely got to look at the individuals for that sort of thing. Yeah,
all about working with the dog that's in front of you, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And even as they age, there's nothing they can't do, really. I think it's just too easy to say, oh no, they're old, they don't need to do anything. And it's about just making things a little bit simpler. If you've got a really old dog, you might not wrap food up in a towel. You might just put a soft toy over it, and they've just got to nudge it off or pour it off, or about. And again, you can see I've got a passion for olfaction, because again, coming back to the olfactory system and the dog's sense of smell, is that the receptors in the olfactory at the back of the nose, in the olfactory recess, actually reproduce themselves every about 8 weeks, I think it is. So you might think you've got a 14-year-old dog, but the scent receptors are pretty new and active and brilliant still, even at that age.
Wow. I think that brings us on to our next question about senior dogs. But what I was going to say is that dogs may lose their sight or their hearing, but they're never going to lose their sense of smell. It's their strongest sense, isn't it?
No, it's very unlikely. You do have some dogs with I forget what they call it now, anosmia, something like that, which basically the loss of the sense of smell.
Really? I never knew that.
Yeah, just like you can get in humans. So you can get it, but it's I think it's quite rare, and you'd be looking at introducing other things instead, obviously. But it's very, very important to them. I think more so than anything else other than safety, really.
Yeah, brilliant. So for those senior dogs or those that may have some mobility issues, are there any lower impact enrichment ideas that we can tell our listeners about?
Yeah, it doesn't. I'm not sure that age, but like dogs who've done agility and that sort of thing, you now have I'm saying new sports, but it's been around for a while now. You've got things like hoopers, which is a lot less stress on joints and stuff like that. Yeah. So you can still get out and do stuff, and the scent thing is, no dog's ever going to get bored with sniffing around. That can make such a big difference. That's got nothing to do with age. You don't have to walk very far. You can even bring scents into the house. I've seen people bring in leaves in autumn and for a dog to smell who can't get out and about anymore. I think that the thing to remember there is the safety side of it, or maybe not safety, but the dog feeling safe. In that, if you've got an anxious dog, they might not like the smell of other dogs in their house. So you've got to be a little bit careful with the scents that you're bringing in. But I mean, I had a 14-year-old West Island Terrier, and she was still learning new tricks. I had to do a project for university where I had to teach something that the dog had never learnt before. I had to do something with that I'd never done, a totally new thing. And so it's like impossible to think of anything with the Labrador I was training, because we'd just done everything. So I had to use Daisy for this shaping exercise. So she was still learning stuff at that age. So, the brain, you've got to go off the individual, like I say. There's so much you can do to make life easier. If the dog's going on the sofa, you can get the little stool for them to step up onto it, because they still want to lay on the sofa next to you, but getting off can be quite induce quite a lot of anxiety for them, because they know it might be painful, and then I think you can get behaviour problems coming in peeing indoors and stuff like that, just because it's such an effort for them to do otherwise. So we've just got to tailor things really and simplify them, and just make them a bit easier for the dog, so they can easily cope and still enjoy life. I think the thing to think really is just not to give up on them. It should be for the years of joy they've given us. Too many people see their old dog as just a bit of a pain really now, because they don't get the joy out of them or whatever, and really it's a privilege to be able to look after them in their later years, I think.
They're not with us long, so I'd hate that.
Like even things like it's just come to mind is like you get the fabric food foragers that was introduced a couple of years ago. So if the dog doesn't like the noise of things that clatter around and all, these are all nice and quiet and soft things, like a snuffle mat, things like that. They could still, there's nothing difficult about a snuffle mat. They actually was over exaggerated in how good they were, because most dogs find them ridiculously easy. But you can imagine an older dog who's not getting out much, that snuffle mat could be brilliant for them to be finding little bits of food in and foraging around in.
Yeah, definitely. So many guardians of nervous or anxious dogs that struggle with traditional activities. How can enrichment help these dogs feel more secure, Shay?
Well, I think it comes in, and again, I never used to. This is new for me, really, over recent years, because I never introduced enrichment as a problem behaviour solver, if you know what I mean. I was just thinking of it as beating boredom, but it's developed over the years, and so now I think that enrichment can be done at home. So you've got anxious dogs or whatever. There's so much that you can do at home with the dog that they're then not experiencing that anxiety outside, and it allows them to build confidence and gives an opportunity to be successful, just like food foraging in the garden and stuff like that. And through that activity, they gain confidence. A scent search, a find it game, or they're going off to find something you've hidden in the garden. I think allows them to build confidence, because they're acting under their own steam. You're not going do this, do that. It's for them to enjoy if they want to. So it gives them confidence, and it also gives them a focus, and they've got something, more constructive and more useful to do. And it allows us to work with the dog without any real expectation being put on them. Because if they've got problems, they've got anxiety, they've got fears, they've got, that's why I think enrichment is brilliant in that area, because we're not piling on more pressure. Nobody, well, probably very few people, they're doing it wrong if they do, but most people aren't doing enrichment activities with any great expectation of what the outcome's got to be, like you would with obedience, or making a dog sit and stay for 10 minutes. So there's a lot of pressure on dogs when we're teaching those sort of behaviours that you just don't get in enrichment. It's not about how good you are, how good the dog is, it's about engagement with the world. And so I think it can just help take the pressure off all that and give dogs something else to do. And you can use it out and about. I'm a little bit torn to say it, and I'll explain why. So you can do these activities when you're out and about to prevent the dog misbehaving, whatever, being reactive, running off somewhere else, paying attention to something else you don't want them to play with, by playing enrichment games, doing a scent game. But really, I think that brings it into training a little bit, rather than it being purely enrichment. So you end up with a bit of a mix. I don't call that enrichment. You're not doing that for the dog's sake to increase their level of engagement. You're doing it to try and avoid something else, which I'm not saying that's not useful, but I don't consider it to be purely enrichment either.
Yeah, totally understand that. Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. We're going to be moving on to our next section, which is all about easy, budget-friendly enrichment ideas for everyday life. One of the biggest misconceptions is that enrichment has to be expensive. But can you share any simple, low-cost ideas that guardians could try at home?
Yeah, and that is absolutely right. I do remember one of the problems when I first started the enrichment group is people complaining about that very thing. And some of the enrichment toys are so expensive, and then they're not suitable for all people, or they don't use them in the right way, or they leave the dog not supervised and it gets destroyed. And some of these toys are like 40, 50, 60 pound easily. They're not so it's not always cheap, but I always say that you don't need to buy any of those things to give your dog an enriching experience. And so some of the things I've done at home is things like toilet roll tubes. I think I started that craze off many years ago as well, saving them all up, putting a little treat in them, folding the ends over, and then you can just give it to the dog like that. But I saved all mine up, and I had hundreds. I've got a video of it somewhere. And then I would just put a treat in about 5 of them out of, a couple of hundred. And then I'd tip them all out on the floor, and the dog would search to see which one had the food in. Then they're not ripping them all open, because dogs aren't that silly. They're smelling which one's got the food in, and then opening just that one. So you wouldn't start at that level. You'd start at just having one with food in, and then having one with food in and one without, and the dog, finds which one's got the food in, and you just build up to that.
That's a good idea.
It's totally free. It's stuff you would throw away. Cardboard
boxes and packaging.
Cardboard boxes is the obvious one. Cereal packaging, stuff like that. You've just got to be careful, especially with these big boxes that you're going to get off Amazon and big deliveries, because sometimes they've got staples in them. And excuse me, my voice is going. And and you've got to be careful of the glues that are used. And so you don't want dogs sitting there chewing the cardboard. I think it's fine to rip it and tear it and find what's inside it, but I would not use it if they're chewing it. I don't want the glues in their mouth and stuff like that. One of the things I do a lot is just getting a piece of food and flicking it across the floor, and it's as simple as that. And that has, even in behaviour work, that has worked quite well for dogs that people have told me won't eat. Because as soon as you make that food come alive and just flick it across the floor one piece at a time, suddenly it's engaging for the dog and can help them, get their appetite to chase it and eat it.
Yeah, love that.
The treasure hunt, again, it's just things you're going to feed them anyway. You can hide it around the house. Again, it's so simple. Most dogs don't need much teaching with this, but you would just put it down, let them see where you're putting it, and they're going to go and get it. And then you slowly increase that to more pots or more things and putting it further out of sight, and then putting the dog in another room and hiding them all and getting them to come in and searching for maybe 5 or 6 little pots with food in it. And then with that game, I always have a sort of a finish cue, so they know they've found them all. Otherwise, they're searching around and there's nothing left. So I might have a treat in my hand and say "all done" when they're all found, and throw it to the dog, something like that. A handful of food dropped in their toy box. Suddenly they've got to find all these bits of food in the bottom of a toy box that you might think the dog never uses. So it brings the toy box back to life as well. Short training sessions or play sessions while the kettle boils. Why just stand there waiting for the kettle to boil when you can just have a little interaction with the dog? I do a thing where I've got 3 buckets and I put them all together, and then I just throw treats across the room or the garden into the bucket, and then the dog has to go and work out which bucket it's in. So it's very, very easy, and most of my enrichment is easy, but it's about engagement, Plastic bottles. What dog doesn't love a plastic bottle? They just... totally free. You're going to throw it in the recycling later. They love squashing a plastic bottle up. And plant pots. I've never known a dog that doesn't adore an empty plant pot if you're doing planting in a garden. I don't know what it is about them. They just absolutely love the way the noise they make or whatever. Plastic beaker cups stacked on top of each other with food in between them. You put a treat in the cup and then put another beaker on top. Rolled up towels, which we've already covered. Sniffing the shopping when it comes in. So I love that now. How the dog sniffs around all the shopping bags. Years ago, we'd have been telling the dog off for that, and I just think how things have changed, and it just makes me smile that I quite like the dog getting in my way now and trying to sniff the stuff.
Sniffing in the bags.
It's not going to work if they nick stuff and run off, but if they can resist that temptation, it's just involving the dog more, really. And like I said, it doesn't have to cost anything at all. I do buy a lot of enrichment stuff, or I have over the years. I don't so much now, but you don't have to. You can have. It's not about that.
Just it sounds like just about using your imagination and just having fun with it, and just it doesn't have to cost a lot. Just things you've got around the home that you maybe throw away.
Everything before you throw it in the recycling is just to think, how could I use this? Could this anything anyone's throwing away? I always think, could I use this before it gets thrown away? Even if it's just to hide something in for the dog to find.
Yeah, definitely. Scent work is one of the best ways to engage a dog's brain. We've spoken a bit about it. Are there any easy scent-based games that don't require specialist equipment, so you could just do some scatter feeding and find it and stuff like that?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I have to come back to, even if you do nothing else, let your dog stop and sniff, because that's undervalued. That's what dogs need to do. But the main scent things that I do is either a food search, and I call them different things so the dog knows if they're looking for food or looking for a scent. So I actually say to the dog, food search if I'm doing this, but this is just hiding a piece of food, and it starts with letting the dog see where you're putting it, and then you might just place it behind a box so they can't see it, but they've seen where you put it, and you build that up. The dog's not silly. They learn that really, really quick. And all you'll do is, as they go off to find it, you say food search, and they know the game's on. And then you'll be able to do it with them in a different room. Put it wherever you like, or in the garden. And as soon as you say food search, that's what they're looking for, some food that they're allowed to have. So that's a really good one. And then I do it without food as well. And that, for me, that involves using catnip, because that's the scent I use.
Right.
So it's really cheap. You can get some dried catnip online, and I just put that in a plastic container with a lid on it, and whatever item I'm using, it might be like a stuffed mouse or something like that, I'll put that in the container so it takes on the smell. I also do this with a £10 note, so they go off and find the £10 note. But then you don't want to start with something like a £10 note. You want to teach them the game first with something they like picking up and chasing. And so you get the toy, you just throw it for them like, you're playing with it. And that slowly turns into a search, because then you'll throw it behind something, or you'll hide it behind something, or you'll put a box on top of it, and you say, find it, and they go off to get it. And then you just build that up slowly till they don't see where you've put it, and they go off. And then their reward for that, or their reinforcer, if you like, for that, well, firstly, they just enjoy doing it. They just, looking for that scent, they can just enjoy doing. But just throwing the toy afterwards for them could be their reinforcer, or you could give a piece of food for them bringing it back to you. I with the dog I've got now, Monty, I don't give him any food for going finding it. He just loves doing it, and he likes to play more than he likes food. My previous dog, Mr. B, he used to get a treat for bringing it back, and I did it with lots of things with that. You can, once you've taught that, you can use that scent on anything. And there's a video, it's quite a few years back now, but I put all the books that I had in my collection, and there's very many, on the floor. Some of them quite expensive, but I put them on the floor. But one of them, my own book, I made it smell of the catnip. And then I told Barney to go and choose his favourite book, and then he brings my book back. So there's all sorts of fun games, and like I say, it's about making it fun for the people as well. You can show silly little tricks like that, and it's just great fun. So and if you don't want to buy the catnip, you could just do it with tea bags. You could put some tea bags in the pot instead of catnip, and it would take on the smell of the tea bags. So you don't have to buy anything at all if you don't want to.
Right.
And then once the dog's learnt that, you can do it with a £10 note, and they learn to bring the £10 note back. And I've got this idea in mind. He's already going searching for the £10 note and bringing it back, but I'm going to make a video of sticking it in someone's handbag, and then he's going to look like he's pickpocketing them out of the handbag. But I've not made the video yet. But that's the idea.
Thank you. That's brilliant. Why is it so important to give dogs choice in their enrichment activities, Shay?
The whole you have to go back to why we do enrichment, and the whole reason we need enrichment is because of the lack of choice and opportunity. So the more choice there is, the more likely we are to understand and to learn about what the individual dog finds enriching, what's improving their life, what's bringing joy to them. And that's about watching your own dog. There's no way of totally absolutely describing that. But again, choice brings us back to agency. And agency is often considered to be the same thing as choice, but it's much, much deeper. And I think agency is fundamentally the feeling of free will. I mean, you can argue about whether free will exists, but that's another level altogether. But I think it's hugely important to have that feeling of free will for the dog, so that they can build confidence and really. A line that I read in a welfare book that always stuck in my mind is that agency was for developing a mastery of their environment, and that's what that's where it comes to development and things like that. They should be able to learn how to master their environment. They shouldn't be scared of it, and they're forced into this little box of a world that we put them in. Mm-hmm. And I include agency as a chapter in that puppy book that you showed earlier, because it's so important to me, and I think it should be something that we consider a lot more going forward. Is that appreciation of allowing dogs to develop some choices. There's good reasons that we have to take care of them. They couldn't survive on their own. But we need to bring in that choice, because it is about freedom again, and safety and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
There was a story Susan Friedman told at a behaviour conference that I've written in a book myself at some time. I forget which one, but I remember writing about it. About, you pick a puppy up, back to puppies again, and you put them down. The moment they squirm or move or show any indication that they want to get down, and that freedom to be able to tell you, I want to get down, or they're not comfortable or whatever, is what gives the confidence to allow people to pick them up. Because you get so many problems with people going to pick up a dog and it's like biting at their hands and whatever, because they haven't got the ability. They've never been allowed to say, no, I don't want to do that. So allowing them to say no, in the long run, it seems counterintuitive, but in the long run, gives you a more confident dog that, is more likely to say yes to the things you want.
Brilliant. Love that. Just moving on to our final section, a couple of questions for this one. It's just the link between enrichment and behaviour, and we've touched on it a little bit. But many behaviour problems like excessive barking or destructive chewing are often linked to unmet needs. How does enrichment help prevent or manage these behaviours, Shay?
So I think, firstly, enrichment activities begin to fulfill the dog's needs, so they're not seeking so much stimulation elsewhere. So you've got that, and it's really the foundation of behaviour change, because if we're not meeting the dog's needs, how can we expect them to meet our needs? And we come across that all the time in behaviour. Is that we demand the dog to do this, that, or the other, and we're not even coming close to meeting their needs. Or, that's not always out of unkindness. Sometimes it's just people don't realise what the dog's needs are. They don't consider life from that point of view. But it can also, like I said, be used as a management tool, or instead of introducing an alternative behaviour, we introduce an alternative activity, so the dog's got other focuses. And again, like the treasure hunt or the scent around the garden, rather than a dog standing out in the garden barking. And that's one of the things I get a lot. People will write to me and say they let their dog out in the garden and it just bark, bark, bark. And partly that's just become a habit. They don't know what else to do. But it's about going out there and doing these other activities, so that they then connect going out in the garden, into the garden, with doing these other activities. And they've got a choice. Are they going to engage in something they enjoy doing, or are they going to stand there barking seemingly senselessly? I mean, they've probably got a reason. We just don't know what it is.
Right.
And again, for puppies, you would bringing in these activities is very important, because you've got things like being a Labrador person. Labradors love to chew wood. So if you're going to bring a Labrador puppy into your house, it's a very good idea to have wood, like natural wood chews, and give them that option of things that they can't, because every Labrador I've ever come across at that age has been very attracted to chewing wood, and I've lost a few door frames over the years.
Right, okay. Brilliant. So for dogs who may struggle with impulse control, how can structured enrichment help them develop better coping skills?
Well, if you're using enrichment, we're meeting the dog's needs, and impulsivity should naturally decline, I think. It depends on the causes and the individual dog, but like a dog that gets lots of social interaction and mental stimulation will have a less intense need to act impulsively, because their needs are being met. So you have that, and it's about playing simple games, I think, with a toy with them. Then, so a bit like the game where you teach dogs to leave it, things like that people now are sort of they're a bit worried to teach because it's like, oh no, it's sort of unkind for the dog, making them leave it, or not allowing them to have something. Or so the ideas are well founded, but they go a bit too extreme because humans do that. So if we take the game of what I used to use as teaching dogs to leave, would just be to have two toys exactly the same, and you probably know it. You play with one like tug type toy, and the dog's going crazy for it, and you can literally just stop. You don't need any instruction, and 9 times out of 10 the dog's just go, oh, what we stopped for, and you can bring the other one alive that's behind your back. It's about making it come alive and play with that one, and then once it doesn't take them long to learn that when you stop, they're waiting for you to produce something else, and you can start having a leave it cue in there as you stop playing, or a wait, or whatever you want to call it. And I think little games like that, again, you're not putting any pressure on the dog, you're not enforcing this in any way, you're just stopping and waiting for the dog to react, and then making it joyful again. Little things like that, just getting the dog to wait and not be so impulsive, and they're learning really that just that stop and thinking is going to create something else, and it just introduces that ability for them rather than it all being so difficult. It doesn't have to be that difficult. It's not about overpowering the dog, or or being stronger than a dog, or demanding they do what we want. It can be that wait or leave it can start as a simple enrichment game like that.
Brilliant. Thank you. Apologies to yourself and the listeners for my dogs just going crazy just now. They all just started having a funny couple of minutes, so that was most embarrassing. Hopefully we might be able to get the team to edit that out, but if not, it's just very relatable. It's the Yappy Hour and we've got dogs yapping in the background. Wow, this episode has been absolutely amazing. We're going to start wrapping up with some final thoughts and questions. Literally, it's been jam-packed with nuggets of information. So Shay, if you could give dog guardians one key message about enrichment, what would it be?
Again, that's probably something that changes over the years, but at the moment, I would say that enrichment isn't an optional extra, the way people see it as. If we want dogs to have a good mental well-being, we must give them an enriched life, and a life worth living, if you like, and something to live for, and enjoyment and joy in every day. The thing that makes the biggest difference to any dog's life isn't something you can buy, it's you. It's how you interact with them, it's being their place of safety, it's how you incorporate them into your routines, like when you're making a coffee, you go and do something with the dog, or when adverts come on the tea. It's stuff like that. It's you who brings that joy, and it just reminds me of something I only wrote on the internet, I think yesterday, because a picture of my old Labrador, Mr. B, popped up from 3 years ago, and when that picture was taken, we was on our way to the vets, and I'd stopped on a field for him to have a toilet and run around before we went into the vets, and we didn't know how seriously ill he was, and he had 3 weeks to live. Don't start me off.
God.
But it's about, none of us know. We don't know for our dogs, we don't know for ourselves. So it's about finding some joy. We can't all walk around being joyful every minute of the day, but find some joy every day in what you're doing with your dog, and bring some joy to their life.
Brilliant. Thank you. And for someone who's new to enrichment, what would be the simplest first step that they can take today?
I think when you're starting off, a good place to start is food, and just thinking about how you feed them, and come up with more interesting ways, like we've spoken about, without making life difficult. It's not about making life difficult. It's about making it interesting, and just there's so many ways that you can feed dogs in more interesting ways. And I know some people don't like it, and they think they sort of see it from a different point of view and think, it's cruel not to let them eat all their dinner in a bowl, and but no dog evolved to have their food. No animal evolved to have their food placed in front of them. So just consider that and just make it a little bit more engaging. Doesn't have to be difficult.
Brilliant. Shay, thank you so much. Where can listeners find out more about your work, book, resources, please?
Well, I have a website, shaykelly.com. That's mainly, it's a blog, but I don't really do much writing on there anymore, but I keep it because it's got a lot of interesting blogs on it that I've written over the years. And all my books are listed on there. I've got a Facebook page called Shay Kelly MSc Understanding Dogs, and that's just things I think of to write about. It's not all about training, just it's thoughts and musings really about the dog world and dogs. And I've got the Facebook group called Canine Enrichment. It's got my name on the banner at the top because there's so many groups now with using that name. So if you want my one, look for my name at the top.
Brilliant. Shay Kelly, the man, the myth, the legend. Thank you so much for joining me on the Yappy Hour, powered by Yappily today. I've absolutely loved this conversation with you. Literally, like I said, it's been jam-packed full of so much useful information. Would love to get you back on in the future, but thank you so much for joining me today, Shay.
Thank you very much. It's been good fun. I've quite enjoyed it. I get a bit passionate about my subject, but
I love that. Your passion oozes out of you, and I love that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
What an eye-opening conversation with Shay Kelly. Here are some key takeaways from today's episode. Number 1, enrichment is essential, not optional. It helps meet a dog's natural needs, preventing frustration and behavioural issues. Number 2, it's more than just toys. Shay mentioned his 5 different types of enrichment, and they are: number 1, safety; 2, food foraging; 3, non-food activities; 4, natural behaviours; and 5, companionship and bonding. But they don't necessarily have to come in that order, and they all play a role in the dog's well-being. Number 3, tailor enrichment to your dog's needs. Different breeds, ages and personalities benefit from different types of activities, so always work with the dog that's in front of you. Number 4, it doesn't have to be expensive. You can use household items and DIY games to engage your dog's mind and body. Shay, thank you so much for sharing your expertise and your passion with us today. And to all our listeners, if you want to learn more, check out Shay's books and resources on canine enrichment. I also just wanted to apologise if you could hear my dogs having a funny 5 minutes earlier. It wouldn't be called the Yappy Hour without having dogs yapping in the background. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a review, sharing it with a fellow dog parent, and subscribe so you never miss an episode of the Yappy Hour. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.